Hello everyone, thank you for joining in this morning. Today's webinar it's our Grand Stream webinar, how to connect remote users to local networks on GWN 7062 and 7052 and create a site-to-site using OpenVPN. Today, Miguel Linares will be our presenter for our webinar, and Miguel, we are ready to start.
Thank you, Victor, for this introduction. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for assisting. Today in this webinar, we're going to talk about how to configure OpenVPN servers in our routers. In this case, we're going to do an introduction of the VPN feature. What is it? What are the protocols of the VPN? Just a brief explanation of it. And then we will start by configuring the OpenVPN server and clients. I have prepared in this session a router, two routers actually, in order to configure the site-to-site. And I have two phones in order to do the remote access. There are two ways to connect to an OpenVPN server, so you will know how to do it. If any questions, you can let me know in the question chat section, and I will try to answer the best I can in regard to your inquiries for this session. So being said that, let's start with the webinar. In this case, why do we need VPN? Okay, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network and provides your business with a secure encrypted internet connection to your private network over the public internet. Well, let's think about this analogy. Let's think that if you are a business employee and then you would like to access your your business remote network because you are out of the office. The regular way without VPN is to access with the ISP public IP address. Then you will have to go directly to the ISP resources in order to go to your remote network. This is considered insecure because, well, in comparison with a virtual private network, which is one of the features that it provides, it encrypts your data and you don't have to use directly the ISP network in order to reach your remote location. Instead, the VPN, gives you the ability to create a tunnel. So you go directly to the network using a VPN interface that connects different subnets in the same tunnel. So using a VPN server gives you the ability to remotely access important network resources and connect your company's branches and locations worldwide. One of the benefits of using VPN is that you can configure not only encrypt the data. You could have settings like authentication settings. You could connect several branches in one server topology. So all of those features can be widely configured by using OpenVPN and the settings that we're going to explain throughout this webinar. Okay, through a VPN, packets are sent over the internet through an encrypted tunnel, as we said previously. The encrypted VPN tunnel makes it appear as though you are directly connected to the private network, keeping your online activity, including your web browsing history, hidden. So if you are using a VPN connection, let's say specifically a site-to-site connection, the user won't notice that. They will be capable to access the remote network just as they were there. Okay, they will be capable to use the private IP addresses that the router that is there provides. So, it's like a seamless connection between the user and the remote location. Okay. Now, the purpose of the VPN is simple. When you use a VPN server, you connect to the internet, but not directly, if not through a VPN server. Okay, so you don't go to the ISP. You're not using the ISP resources in order to go to remote locations, okay, remote networks. So in this case, it gives you the benefit that your IP address, your public IP address is not viewed. Neither all your network activity performed on behalf of the VPN server. So your data won't be unencrypted or unprotected while browsing the internet. It goes to the VPN tunnel and all the data is encrypted. Okay. Good. Now let's see the difference between the remote access and the site-to-site connections. These are the common setups that users use when they connect to a VPN server. Okay. For remote access, remote access means that your remote employees can log on to your office network from anywhere. Okay. Basically, the user connects to the VPN. It receives an IP address from the tunnel network, okay, which is something that we're going to explain later, how the tunnel networks is configured, an IP address, and you can communicate back and forth. However, this type of access, remote access one, um, is more intended for one-way communication. Like that user will be able to connect to a remote network, but the remote network, unless that user is not connected, won't be able to connect to that local network. However, there is the site-to-site. The site-to-site allows the remote network to access to your local network from where you are connecting. Let's say the client connection. This gives you the ability to share, both LAN networks, LAN subnets. So the remote LAN subnet will be capable to connect to the local LAN subnet and back and forth. That's the site-to-site connection. Okay, is where two or more different networks are connected together using one OpenVPN tunnel. In this connection model, devices in one network can reach devices in the other network and vice versa. Okay, this is the most typical scenario where we try to connect remote branches in a company, and this is actually the one that we are going to configure in this webinar, so you will know how to do it. Any questions so far? Okay, let's continue. Now, one of the benefits of the VPN services is that it extends geographic connections. Branches and offices can connect to each other, no matter their location. As long as the client has the ability to connect to the OpenVPN server via the internet, they will be capable to access to the remote subnet resources. It enables hybrid and remote workforces to securely access company networks, data, and applications on public Wi-Fi. It is known that if you have an employee that is connected to a public Wi-Fi, and let's say that it is going to use, to receive traffic, critical traffic coming from your business, like log in with credentials that could be critical if someone sniffs that traffic and somehow could make hack your information. Well, the VPN gives you the ability to establish a secure connection, so your data is encrypted when you access to the remote location. Okay. Now, save on travel cost for your remote workforce, provides virtual connections to the network for your offsite users, as it gives you the flexibility to connect anywhere with any application or any network device that supports the OpenVPN protocol. You could save cost by you don't have to necessarily look for a specific device in order to connect or be on a specific site in order to do the same. Okay. You will gain security and privacy. A VPN is an important piece of the must-have layer of security for every business operating in our hyper-connected market. Scale simply and efficiently. Easily add more VPN connections as your business expands. You can create users for them to connect for remote access. The amount of users necessarily needed in order for them to connect to the remote network. Or you can just create a single user for the site-to-site connection, and then that way you could scale your tunnel network efficiently with more users, more access. Yeah. Now, what are the VPN protocols that are often in the market and are used? In this case, we're going to talk about the OpenVPN, but just giving a brief explanation of each of the one you see in the presentation. There is a point-to-point tunneling protocol, which is the PTP, and this works on all computers and operating systems, mobile devices, phones, Android, and other devices, and this is commonly used. This is the most commonly used VPN connection. If you go to your Windows VPN settings, you will see the option to connect via PPTP, and that is one of the first options that you will see there. Also, you can do the same from any Android phone. Yeah, it's the most commonly used VPN connection. However, it's not as secure as the rest of VPN connections. Then there is the L2TP, the layer 2 tunnel protocol. It's popular since it offers some stronger encryption than the PPTP that we previously discussed, and can work when the PPTP won't, since it uses a different port number. Then there is the OpenVPN. It works on Android, iOS devices, special applications, works on all computers and operating systems, and utilizes user-side certificates to make this a secure connection to VPN server. You can also allow bypassing of proxies. Let's say that you are behind a router and you don't have the ability to do port forwards or something like that. Well, you can connect like an OpenVPN client, and you can bypass those limitations that having multiple NATs in the location could give you. Okay. Each protocol has unique specifications based on priorities. For example, throughput speed, masking encryption that dictate how data is routed through a connection. Now, let's talk about OpenVPN. Well, OpenVPN is one of the most secure VPN options that you could use when trying to access remote locations, remote subnets. Well, it handles encryption and authentication. You can configure certificates per user, and well, username and password for them to additionally bring another layer of security. You can encrypt your data using TLS keys. You will have to configure. You will have a long list of cipher options and authentication options that you can use. And well, also you can use either UDP or TCP in order to transmit data. Okay, it combines the OpenSSL library encryption, authentication, and certification features with transport layer security, TLS, for private key exchange. Okay, well, OpenVPN tunnels any IP subnet network or virtual Ethernet adapter over a single UDP or TCP port. Okay, networks whose public endpoints are dynamic, such as DHCP or dialing clients, can connect as they can be connected as client. Doesn't matter what is the source from where they are connecting, even though they are behind the double NAT or they don't have the ability to create port forwards. Okay, networks through connection-oriented stateful wireless without having to use explicit firewall rules. Okay, as we previously said, we don't have to configure any firewall rules in order to connect if we are the client. Now, OpenVPN supports all of the encryption, authentication, and certification features of the OpenSSL library to protect your private network traffic from bad actors and ISPs as the transits the internet. Okay, any cipher, key size, or digest option supported by the OpenSSL library can be used at the moment you connect through an OpenVPN server. Okay, real-time adaptive link compression and traffic shaping to manage the link bandwidth utilization. Okay, now for functionality, flexibility, and scalability, OpenVPN makes it easy to configure a scalable load balance VPN server using one or more machines. Choose between static keys-based conventional encryption or certificate-based public key encryption. Create secure Ethernet bridges using virtual tap devices, and control OpenVPN using a graphical interface on Windows, which we will see in this presentation, and well, Mac systems. Good. But well, from our brochure, what device can do all of this? Well, in this webinar, we're going to configure a GWN 7062. This is one of our networking routers where we are going to configure the OpenVPN server specifically and also the client, so we can establish this connection. Also, we are going to use other devices like a Windows computer or Grandstream phones, IP phones, in order for them to connect. Okay, so our routers, well, for small offices, home offices, or remote workers, can be used to power smart office and home optimization. Okay, let's bring the hardware specification of our routers. Well, they secure with high performance routing and switch power and accelerated Wi-Fi speeds, mesh networking, and wire IP connections with advanced features, including VPN, beamforming technology, and intelligent QoS. They have an integrated controller available, so you can manage other GWN devices. well, it supports dual WAN mode in case you would like to configure load balancing in the one interface. And well, some of the specifically the GWN 7052F brings you the ability to connect an SFP WAN port, okay, in case you need it. These are the hardware specifications of our routers, but most importantly, we're going to configure the OpenVPN server here, okay? So let's start with the demo so you can see how it can be configured. Just hold on, let me share my desktop so you will see it. Any questions so far?
Hello, Miguel. Well, at the moment, we don't have any questions, but we invite everyone to send us a question. We're using the question panel. This is on the right side of your screen. So please send us any comment or question about the presentation that Miguel is showing us so we can answer them right away. Thank you. We can continue.
Thanks. Okay, so this is the main, the first impression of the GWN 7062, which is the overview page, and gives information about the network connection, network traffic, amount of access devices like access points and clients connected, and well, general alerts and information that we could use at the moment we monitor or troubleshoot the device. However, the main intention of this webinar is to configure the VPN server. As you can see, we have to go to the VPN section that is at the left side. I will zoom out and zoom in the page so you can see it better. And then we have the ability to configure a VPN client or a VPN server. In this case, as we don't have a server yet, we have to configure it here. So let's go to the VPN server. As you can see first, sorry, we have to, I would like to confirm here that I don't have access to the one interface. The one interface is this IP address, which is the one that the client will have to use in order to connect. The other router, which is the one we are going to configure next, is going to use this IP address in order to connect as client to the OpenVPN server. But so far, I just have access to the LAN interface because I'm connected to the Wi-Fi SSID that it offers by default. So let's go to the VPN server settings. Okay, we'll have the ability to configure an IPsec server and an OpenVPN server. For this webinar, we're going to configure the OpenVPN server first. Okay, so we have all the settings we can configure for the server right here. All of them, well, are configured in this page, including the certificates. So it's pretty straightforward. We just have to fill all the data we need right here. So first of all, we have to enable the OpenVPN service. Okay, then we have to set here a name. Could be OpenVPN, could be any name. This is just to identify the VPN interface that we need when we configure the LAN subnet. Then we have the server mode option. This option allows us to configure how the user will authenticate to the OpenVPN server. Well, we have the SSL option, which indicates that the user will have to use certificates in order to authenticate, but just the certificates. But well, you can use this user authentication where you can create users that we're going to do later, and they will have to just put here the username and password in order to authenticate. Pretty simple. Then we can do a mix of the two that we previously set. Certificates plus user authentication. The user will have to have the certificates in order to try to log in, to access as client to connect with this server, but also they have to include the username and password. And then we have the PSK, which is another type of authentication where we have to have a private share key. Okay. In this case, we're going to use the user authentication, which is the commonly used option. We have the ability to configure the protocol, which could be UDP or TCP. And well, this is just for you to, the conditions where you will have to decide when to use UDP or TCP is mostly, it will depend on your connection with the ISP and your bandwidth. UDP uses less resources than TCP, and by default, it uses UDP. Just for this presentation, we are going to use UDP. Then we have to select the interface. You can only select one interface at a time. This OpenVPN server doesn't allow you to do a failover if you have more than one interface. So it's more important that you use the interface that you need when you configure the OpenVPN server. Then this is a setting that is important because this destination setting indicates where the traffic will go when clients connect to the OpenVPN server. In this case, we have the default or default VLAN, and well, this can be changed, this name, but this is actually the local network, the LAN subnet of the router. So we have to select this option here. If not, users, when they connect to the OpenVPN server, they won't be routed to the LAN subnet, and if we are going to configure a site-to-site connection, then we need to have access to the LAN subnet. Okay, good. By default, 1194 is the support for OpenVPN connections. You can change it if you want, but for this demo, we're going to keep the default port. Then we have the options for encryption and DIOS algorithms. Okay, you can use any here, any that is available in this list, in order to to encrypt the data that passes through the tunnel. And this is the algorithm that is used at the moment to authenticate. So for this demo, we're going to use the default settings: AES 256 CBC and SHA 256. In case we have a TLS key, assuming I don't have one, but in case you have it, you can check this option and secure your connection by having a TLS pre-shared key. And this way, both the server and the client will have to have the same key in order to authenticate. That way, they will be capable to access. Okay, just to bring another layer of security to the OpenVPN connection. So we're going to check this option. This option, we're going to use this one because it allows you to use the same client certificates that we create per user from several users. So if we create just a group of certificates, just by if we have more than one user, all of them can use the same certificates in order to connect. So just for this demo, we're going to enable this option. Now we have to configure the CI certificate, the server certificate, and that can be done from here. Basically, we just have to click on the drop-down list, and then we click on Add CI certificate, and we have to fill this data. Well, pretty simple. We just have to make sure that all of the settings that are here are consistent through all the certificates that we're going to create. In this case, well, let's create the CI certificate with this name, CI demo. Okay. The key length is the amount of data that that the certificate will contain. The less it is, the less data. The more it is, the more the data. Okay. In this case, we're going to use the default setting 2048, and the DIOS algorithm has to be the same as the DIOS algorithm that is configured on the OpenVPN server. In this case, I left there the SHA 256, so I will put it here too. Okay, the expiration days will be any number of days from 1 to almost a million. So let's put here 1,000. Okay. And what we can configure here just to define the origin of the certificate for this self-signed certificate. We can configure here the country, the city, organization, or organization unit, and the email address. So you put that information in the certificate. Okay. So in this case, we'll put here Boston, Grand Stream, let's put here support, and my email address. Okay. So with this, we have configured the CA certificate. Now, we have to go ahead and configure now the CA certificate. We have to go here and do the same. So make sure that all information that is set between all the certificates are consistent. I said that because if we configure before the DIOS algorithm to SHA 256, it has to be the same here. The expiration of days has to be 1,000, and the origin has to be the same too. So let's put here server demo. This certificate, this server certificate, will be bound to the CA demo certificate. Then we configure the key length, the DIOS algorithm, the days of expiration, and the origin. So we put here the state, city, Grand Stream, support, and my email address. Good. So we have now the CA certificate and the server certificate. Both. Great. Now, well, so far we're in the middle of the settings of the server settings. We just need to configure the tunnel network, and I'm going to explain this settings later. In tunnel network, we have to define what will be the network that users will receive an IP address from. Basically, when you connect to an OpenVPN, you will receive an IP address from a tunnel network, which identifies you as a client. So when you connect as remote access, where you don't have a site-to-site connection, the way that the OpenVPN server redirects traffic to your user, I mean from your remote access user, is by using the IP address that is provided by the tunnel network. So you will have to create another network here. Will be any IP scheme from any of the private classes of IP subnetting. So let's configure here the class A subnet 10.0.0.0/24. So when a user connects to this OpenVPN server, they will receive an IP address from the subnet. So if there is traffic going to that user, the OpenVPN server will forward those packets, that traffic, to the IP address that is provided by this tunnel network. Okay, you will see that when we connect as a client. So when we connect as a client, we should be receiving an IP address from this tunnel. Okay. Then there is the radiated gateway. Well, some of you might be used to use VPN applications, which provide the ability to access remote locations or use public IP addresses from other countries. Okay, that is basically what radiated gateway does. Basically, the OpenVPN server indicates the user to always use the OpenVPN connection for gateway. So the gateway is responsible to route traffic to other networks, such as the internet. So if you enable this option, then the client will receive this option from the connection, from the OpenVPN connection, and then when they go to public domain names, IP addresses, let's say that they go to google.com, and they will use the VPN connection instead of the regular gateway of their network. Okay. In this case, I'm going to turn this off because we don't need it. But if you define here the push routes, only when the user goes to this route is when the user will use the VPN interface. Okay. Just keep in mind here that the user will create a new VPN, a new network interface. It has its own, let's say, WLAN interface or the LAN interface, where they use that in order to connect to the local network. And then the local network has a router that forwards traffic to the internet, to public networks, networks that are outside the LAN subnet. But if you indicate here what are the routes that are in this VPN server, the users, instead of using the gateway of their LAN, of their local network, they will use the VPN interface that is created when connecting to this server. So automatically, when they connect to this server, they will create a new network interface, in this case, one for the VPN connection specifically. So we have to define here what are going to be the networks that remote users will connect when they connect to this server. Okay, so we have to configure here the LAN subnet of the router, basically. So if you're going to configure a site-to-site network, then we have to define here that all the remote users will have the ability to access to this subnet. You can see here that this is the LAN IP address of the router, and the subnet is 80.0/24. Okay, this is the LAN subnet of the router. So if we want remote users to connect to any of the the devices that are in the local area network of the router, we have to define that subnet right here. Okay, important. We have to configure the LAN subnet here. Okay, then we have the ability to use LCO compression. Well, that compress data the moment we use the tunnel. It is by default enabled, so let's leave it as enabled. And then there is a setting allow peer to change IP in case that the user changes IP, the client changes IP. The connection will be resumed when they try to connect back to the VPN server. So let's leave this on just in case. And let's save this just for now. So right now we have the OpenVPN server settings configured. Okay, as you can see, it was very easy. The only thing that we have to make sure here is that, well, you define the server mode. It has to be the option that you need users to authenticate, whether they use certificates, user authentication, SSL user authentication, or PSK. This is the choice of the administrator of the router or the VPN server. Then you have to define the destination. It has to be the LAN subnet in order for remote users to access the LAN subnet. These settings, the encryption algorithm and DIAS algorithm, they can be changed, but just by having the default settings, it should be enough. Then we have to configure the certificates. Important that the information that you put in the certificates, they have to match on all the certificates that you create later, okay? Then you define a tunnel network. Also, something that I forgot to mention here is that the tunnel network cannot match any of the networks that you have created already. And this includes networks that are outside the router too. Basically, if we have this subnet, okay, we cannot put this subnet here because it's the same. And then routes will match and will cause conflicts by, when try to access to the local area network or going to remote subnets. So make sure that the tunnel network is different. The most different it can be, the better. Actually, let's put it more different, like 10.10.0/24. Good. Now save this. And well, the other setting that you don't have to forget when you configure an OpenVPN server is to configure this same destination setting, but in the LAN subnet. And that has to be done under network settings, then LAN, and then you edit the LAN. As you can see, there is a destination option that allows you to configure where the traffic coming from the LAN will go. By default, it goes to the one interface because this is the ISP. This is the way users can have internet access. But the VPN interface is unchecked when you first create the VPN server. So make sure it is checked. If not, the LAN devices won't be able to connect to remote networks. Okay, good. Now we have the server, but now we have to configure how clients will connect. And for that, we have to configure certificates or users. Okay, for that, we have to go system settings right here at the bottom, and then we go to certificate management. Right here, well, you can see the CA certificate that we created and the server certificate in the certificate page. Great. Now we need the client certificate and the user certificate. And the client certificate cannot be created unless we create a user first. So let's go to user, then we add new one. And well, this can be, this is just for description purposes. Let's put here demo user. Let's make sure the status is on. Username can be any two, could be demo user or mixed. Then the password could be the same, demo user. And in case we configure a site-to-site connection, we have to define what is the remote subnet that is there. Okay, let's say that the other router doesn't have 80. If not, it has 81 as IP scheme. Well, we have to configure here the OpenVPN server. So it has to be 81.0/24 in case the other router has that IP scheme. Let's do that. So when we create the site-to-site client, well, the connection will work. Well, in this case, this demo user will be a site-to-site. So let's put that here, site-to-site, site-to-site. Good. Now we have created the site-to-site user, and let's create now the remote access user. Same, demo user, remote access. Let's say demo user, remote access, and the same as password. And in this case, as it is a remote access user, it doesn't have to use an OpenVPN subnet because in this case, the traffic that will go to this remote access user will be the tunnel IP, the one that the OpenVPN server provides when they connect. So let's configure the users. Good. And we should be able now to configure certificates. We have to configure a client certificate in order for clients to connect based on the server mode that we configure in the OpenVPN server, which we selected SSL plus user authentication. So as we define SSL, we have to configure certificates. So let's add a new one. In this case, we have to change the certificate type to client, important here. And then we define what is going to be the user that will use that client. So I will use the remote access for this test. And then this will be demo, no, client demo, client demo. Okay, it's bound to the CA demo we configured before. The key length is 2048. This is good. Then shade 256. Expiration days will be 1000. Then we have to configure the same state, city, and Grandstream support. And the email address has to be here. Save. Good. Now we have the client certificate, the server certificate, and the CA certificate. This is good. This is good. This is fine. This should work when we try to connect as clients. So the rest now of the webinar is to configure the clients in order to connect to the server. For that, let me access to a router. Okay, just give me 1 second. So far, do you have any questions related to the topic?
Hello, Miguel. Yes, we do have one question, and at the moment, I think that will be the last question for today's webinar, since we have to close the session in about 5 minutes. So one question from Mr. White is, I noticed the USB ports, so I assume the router supports FTP login, and does it also support print sharing via an app?
Via the USB port, the USB port can only be used for troubleshooting purposes like collecting data, but it cannot be used as another interface. If we
for FTP login or print sharing via app, is that possible?
No, the only login that we have for the router is the web access. It doesn't have another terminal or another way for access.
Thank you, Miguel. And yes, we do have 3 more minutes, and if we want to expand in any other topic or feature from the system, we have that time available.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and configure quickly phone so I can connect to the OpenVPN server. Okay, we'll be quick. Okay, let me try to access to this IP address really quick. And we'll configure a client quickly. So in this client, I have another 7062, and then I will create the OpenVPN client for it to connect. So basically, we configure a client, we define the connection type, and it has to be OpenVPN. Then I will configure this as client. Then the protocol is UDP. We define the destination, and that is the default name. Then, well, we configure the remote OpenVPN server, and that has to be the public IP address that the server has, which is 82. You can find it here. Let's copy that and put it here. Then the port of the server is 1194. The authentication mode is SSL plus user authentication. So we have to put here the username and password, and that is user demo site to site. Okay. Then we have the password, which is the same site to site. Encryption algorithm and digest algorithm have to match the server settings, which is AES-256 and SHA-256. This route setting indicates the subnet of the client, so we don't have to configure that here. In this case, I will leave empty, and we have to upload the certificates. With these settings, we should be able to log in, but it will be quick. Hold on. So we download the certificates. We need SCA. We need the client certificate and the client key. These three files are the one that we need in order to connect. So we make sure that we have them, and then we just upload them here. So the CA will be under downloads. I have this one here, and then client demo certificate and the client key. So just with this, we should be able to connect and authenticate. We have another. Let's put another. Okay. So in a couple of seconds, we should be seeing the status as connected if we put the information correctly. In the meantime, I will confirm about the user just to make sure that the credentials are fine. Demo user. I think I put user demo. Yeah. Demo user. And the same here. Demo user. It's 2S. And connect again. In the meantime, let's make sure that also for the server, we have to do the same for the client. We have to configure the destination in the client. So we have to go to the LAN subnet and then put here the client. Actually, the VPN that we configure as client should be this one, yeah. Okay, now let's see how is the connection to the server, and that is under VPN client. Okay, it is connected now. So in theory, with this connection, we should be capable to access from clients that are connected to this router to the other router. That is the setup actually. Just make sure that the LAN subnet matches the one that is configured in the user that is here, which is 81. And this is incorrect, just for you to know. It has to be 81, or the one that is here has to be in this field. So you can have side-to-side communication. As you can see, the configuration is pretty simple. It's not that challenging. We just have to make sure that the key settings that we need to configure on the server are correctly configured. And well, create the certificates and put that in the router client. You can follow this video if you will take a copy of this, so you can have a reference when configuring the OpenVPN server. So this should be all for now. If you have any other question, let me know.
Thank you so much, Miguel, and thank you everyone for joining in this morning. A quick reminder is that this webinar is being recorded and will be sent to your email right after the webinar. Also, we're also uploading all of our webinars to our EPCOM channel, EPCOM USA, where you will be able to check all this information that Miguel just presented us about the VPN and the Grandstream system. So you can follow up that at the moment that you are configuring your routers. Another question. No, that's the last one, Miguel, for Mr. White. And if you have any other question, please send us the question on the follow-up email. Our engineering team and Grandstream team will be ready to help you on your project. So we thank you, Miguel, for your time this morning, and we thank everyone for attending to this webinar. And we hope to see you in our next webinar next week. So please keep checking our website, appcom.net, for future webinars. Miguel, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have
Bye-bye.
a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.